It started like any other quiet afternoon inside a busy retail store, the kind of place where shoppers moved slowly through the aisles, comparing prices and chatting softly among themselves. But in just a matter of minutes, that calm scene would be shattered by an incident so shocking that no one inside the store would ever forget it. At the center of this story is a respected elderly woman, a customer who had only come in to pick up a few simple items. She was kind, patient, and carried herself with the dignity that comes from a lifetime of experience. Yet, what should have been an ordinary shopping trip turned into something that left the entire store in disbelief. The manager on duty that day was known for being strict, perhaps even harsh, but few could have predicted what was about to happen. It wasn't just about poor service or a misunderstanding. What unfolded crossed a line no one thought possible inside a professional workplace. Customers who had been browsing nearby suddenly stopped in their tracks, and the atmosphere inside the store shifted from casual to tense in a heartbeat. Whispers began, eyes turned, and the air grew heavy with the weight of what had just taken place. The elderly woman stood stunned, hurt, not just by the action itself, but by the sheer disrespect behind it. Those watching couldn't believe their eyes. People looked around, expecting someone from management to step in to correct what had gone wrong. But instead of immediate support, there was silence and uneasy pause that made the moment feel even worse. Some employees exchanged nervous glances, unsure whether to speak up or remain quiet, while customers debated whether to intervene. And then, just as the tension threatened to boil over, something happened that no one could have predicted. Within only 2 minutes of the incident, a decision was made that would shake the foundation of the store itself. It wasn't just about one manager anymore. This went far beyond that. The entire management team would soon find themselves facing consequences they never saw coming. The story of how a single action inside a store led to the downfall of its entire leadership is one that still raises questions. Who had the power to make such a bold move? What drove the sudden decision? And how did the elderly woman's courage spark a change that would ripple far beyond that one afternoon? Stay with me, because this is where the story truly begins. The woman at the center of it all was not just any shopper. She was a longtime customer, someone who had supported the store for years and knew many of the employees by name. People described her as warm, thoughtful, and always ready with a kind word. That's why what happened that afternoon felt so unbelievable. It wasn't only about a bad interaction, it was about respect, dignity, and the way people should be treated in public spaces. Customers who recognized her were outraged, whispering to each other, wondering how things had escalated so quickly. The manager involved had a reputation, and not a flattering one. Employees had quietly spoken about his temper, about how he sometimes pushed people too hard or dismissed concerns with a sharp tone. But until that moment, his behavior had never been called out in such a dramatic way. To see him cross that line with someone so vulnerable left everyone shaken. It was no longer a question of management style. It had turned into a defining moment for the entire store. Behind the scenes, other managers began to realize the seriousness of the situation. They knew that something like this couldn't simply be brushed aside or explained away. Employees were already on edge, and customers had their phones out, recording, documenting what had happened. The company's reputation now hung in the balance, and every second that passed without action made the damage worse. And then came the most unexpected twist. While many were still frozen in shock, a figure of authority stepped in quietly but firmly, surveying the scene with sharp eyes. Within minutes, whispers spread that the future of the management team was at risk. One bold choice was about to change everything, and the employees standing in that store could feel history unfolding right in front of them. What most people in the store didn't realize was that the elderly woman wasn't just an ordinary customer. She had a quiet influence in the community, someone who believed deeply in fairness and respect. She was known for speaking up when she saw wrong being done, and that day was no different. Even in her shock, she carried herself with a calm dignity that made others take notice. Shoppers watched her closely, almost as if waiting for her to decide what would happen next. The manager, meanwhile, seemed unsettled. His usual confidence appeared shaken as he noticed the crowd forming and the growing sense of disapproval in the room. Employees who had once stayed silent now looked at him with open doubt. They knew this wasn't just another tough day at work. Something had shifted. They could feel the weight of it pressing down on the store. In the background, word was already moving quickly. Staff whispered among themselves, trying to piece together what would come next. Some wondered if corporate would get involved, while others speculated that a higher authority might already be watching. The tension was so thick that even the customers could sense the store was on the edge of a major turning point. What made the moment even more unsettling was how fast everything seemed to unfold. 1 second, it was just another routine day. The next, there was a silence so heavy that every sound, the beep of a scanner, the shuffle of carts, felt louder than usual. Everyone knew a decision had to be made, but no one expected it to come so swiftly. Within minutes, the balance of power inside that store would shift in a way that left people speechless. The question now wasn't if there would be consequences, but just how far they would reach. The atmosphere inside the store was reaching a breaking point. Customers held their breath, unsure of whether to stay and witness what was about to happen or quietly slip away. Phones remained raised, capturing every moment, while whispers rippled through the aisles like waves. Some were shocked, some angry, and others simply waiting for someone in authority to make the next move. It was clear to everyone that what had happened could not be undone, and the silence that followed only made the tension sharper. The elderly woman stood firmly, her calm presence strangely commanding. She didn't shout, she didn't argue, but her expression alone seemed to speak volumes. Employees who had long endured the manager's harsh behavior suddenly found themselves drawing courage from her. They exchanged looks, their unease turning into a quiet defiance. This wasn't just about one customer anymore. It was about the way people deserved to be treated. No matter their age, background, or position, the manager paced, visibly rattled. For someone who had always been in control, the sudden loss of authority was overwhelming. He tried to issue commands, but his voice cracked under the weight of the moment. Each word seemed weaker than the last, as the employees no longer rushed to obey. The balance of power in that store was shifting right before everyone's eyes, and it was happening faster than anyone expected. Then, through the hush of uncertainty, a figure appeared at the edge of the scene. The energy in the room changed instantly. It wasn't just another employee, it was someone whose authority carried weight. Someone whose presence meant decisions were about to be made. The crowd fell even quieter, leaning in, straining to catch every movement. Every word, something irreversible, was about to unfold. The future of the store, the management team, and the reputation of everyone involved now hung in the balance. The next few seconds would decide everything. The figure who stepped forward was not just a hire. Managerette was someone even more unexpected. Whispers spread quickly as people realized this wasn't just any authority figure from the store. This was a regional director, someone rarely seen on the floor. And their sudden appearance sent shockwaves through both staff and customers. The employees stiffened, realizing the stakes had just risen higher than anyone could have imagined. The regional director's eyes swept across the room, taking in the stunned customers, the shaken manager, and the elderly woman standing strong at the center of it all. The silence was so thick it was almost unbearable. Everyone braced themselves, waiting for the moment of judgment. But instead of speaking right away, the director simply stood still, studying every face, letting the tension build to a point that made the air feel heavy. And then, just as people thought they knew what was coming, something unexpected happened. The elderly woman wasn't silent anymore. She spoke calmly but firmly, her voice carrying through the store. What she said wasn't loud or angry, but it cut deeper than any shout could. Her words made it clear that this was no longer a private matter between her and the manager. It was about accountability, respect, and the way the entire management team had allowed this environment to exist unchecked. The employees exchanged glances again, their unease now shifting into something bolder. If she had the courage to speak up, maybe they did too. A few nodded quietly, almost in agreement, while others clenched their fists, waiting to see how the director would respond. But the real twist came when the director turned not toward the woman, not even toward the disgraced manager, but toward the rest of the leadership team. Their faces drained of color as they realized they were no longer observers in this moment. They were now part of the spotlight, and their silence over the years was about to catch up with them. The regional director finally broke the silence. Their voice was calm but carried a weight that silenced every whisper in the store. Looking directly at the manager, they made it clear that his actions had crossed a line that could never be ignored. But then, to everyone's shock, the director didn't stop there. One by one, they turned to the rest of the management team, calling out their silence, their failure to act, and the culture of fear that had been allowed to grow unchecked. Customers gasped as the director's words grew sharper, each sentence cutting deeper into the uneasy quiet. And then came the announcement that no one expected. With steady authority, the director declared that the entire management team was relieved of their duties effective immediately. Gasps filled the store. Employees who had long endured the weight of poor leadership exchanged looks of disbelief, then relief. Customers raised their phones higher, capturing the moment as history was made right in front of them. The very foundation of the store had been shaken in a matter of minutes, and nothing would ever be the same again. The elderly woman, who had started as just another shopper on an ordinary day, became the catalyst for change. Her calm dignity in the face of disrespect had exposed cracks that could no longer be hidden. The employees who once felt powerless now saw the possibility of a fresh start, a workplace free from fear and intimidation. The tension that had gripped the store slowly gave way to murmurs of hope. But just when it seemed the story had reached its peak, the director revealed one final twist. They weren't there by coincidence. They had already been investigating complaints about this very management team, and what happened with the elderly woman simply sealed their fate. This was not just punishment, it was part of a larger change that was already in motion. The store, once filled with silence and fear, now buzzed with energy. The customers and employees knew they had witnessed something rare, a moment when justice arrived swiftly, reshaping everything in its path. And though the story closed on resolution, the echo of that day would linger long after the doors of the store reopened. In the days that followed, word about what happened inside the store spread quickly. Customers who had been there shared their recordings online, and soon the story reached far beyond the walls of that single location. People were amazed by the courage of the elderly woman and the swift action taken by the regional director. Many commented that they had never seen such accountability in a retail setting, and it became a reminder of the power of speaking up when something is wrong. The employees who had lived under difficult management finally felt a sense of relief. With the old leadership gone, the atmosphere inside the store began to change. Workers who once moved quietly, trying not to draw attention, now felt comfortable sharing ideas and supporting one another. It was as if a heavy weight had been lifted from the team, and customers noticed the difference too. Shopping there no longer carried the same tension. It felt brighter, more welcoming, and filled with a renewed sense of respect. As for the elderly woman, she became something of a local hero. Many in the community reached out to thank her, not just for standing her ground that day, but for showing everyone that even in the face of disrespect, dignity and patience could carry enormous power. Her actions reminded people that age should never diminish someone's value. And respect should never be negotiable. The regional director's decision also sent a clear message. Silence in the face of mistreatment was no longer acceptable. Leadership would be held accountable, and employees deserved a safe, respectful environment. The story's ending wasn't just about one story, it became an example for others, showing how quickly things can change when courage meets authority. And so, what began as a troubling moment inside a busy store ended as a powerful lesson in respect, accountability, and the importance of standing up for what is right. It was a story no one expected to witness, but one that left everyone with a memory they would never forget. If you enjoyed this story and want more intense thrillers and suspenseful adventures, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, give this video a like, and share it with friends who love a good mystery. Your support helps me bring you more stories just like this one.